I now call this regular meeting of Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Director Hayes, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
I'll be happy to. The mission statement: the Davenport Community School District is dedicated to growing excellence in academics, the arts, and athletics for every child by ensuring the highest quality education in an environment shaped by our diverse community, preparing our students to be lifelong learners and productive citizens. Vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and ensures our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you, Director Hayes. Director Barnes, would you please read our guiding principles?
Guiding principles. Opportunity. We provide abundant opportunities to empower students to reach their full potential academically, creatively, and socially. Collaboration. We foster an environment that allows students, families, and community stakeholders to come together for the betterment of our students' education and future. Transparency. We share relevant and important information with our students, families, and the community to maintain open and productive communication.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Superintendent Schneckloff, would you please read the goals?
Goal number 1, to enhance student learning.
Thank you. We'll move on to recognitions. We have the teacher registered apprenticeship graduation recognition. I'll turn it over to Superintendent.
Today, the leaders of this program are with us today, Nikki DeFallen and Allie Vandermeid. They're going to put us through a presentation.
So we are here to celebrate the Teacher and Paraeducator Registered Apprenticeship Program's graduation for the year of 2023 and 2024. Ready, click. There we go. Just as a reminder, a little bit about the program. It is sponsored from Iowa Workforce Development. It's also a part of the Federal Department of Labor because it's a registered apprenticeship program, and also overseen by Iowa Department of Education. We are the lead sponsor of this grant-funded program for 7 school districts, including Bettendorf, Clinton, Muscatine, North Scott, Pleasant Valley, and West Liberty. The grant pays for tuition, books, and fees for all participants and provides each district a wage reimbursement up to $6 an hour for each apprentice for hours that they work as a part of the program, meaning that they need to be classroom facing. Today we are celebrating the 2 different tracks of TPRA students, the AA track and the BA track. So the AA students are completing an AA degree in education, and then the BA students are completing a BA degree in education. You must have an AA degree in order to be in the BA track. So it's kind of a stair-step approach to growing our own. Our first person from the AA track is Kelsey Lee-Campote from Pleasant Valley School District, Taylor Fox from Pleasant Valley School District, Kitka Galvin, Caitlin Kanoki from North Scott School District, Julia Davin from Clinton Community School District, Jamie Erskine from Davenport Community School District. Jamie is also moving on to our BA track, so she has already started her BA program. Madison Zeller has also started her BA program as well. She's from Davenport Schools. Our BA track people are Amber Causey from Muscatine School District, Amy Loaf from Pleasant Valley, Allison Natham from Davenport Schools, who was just hired at Jackson. Catalina Harrington from Davenport Schools, who is currently interviewing in Davenport Schools and has in like 3 different schools, so she'll have a position. Catherine Madden from Davenport Schools was at Truman. Coming soon, we currently have 84 apprentices enrolled across the 7 districts in this grant that will conclude in December of 2025. Our largest graduating class will happen in the fall, where we have a little over 20 of those apprentices graduating, and we're super excited for that. that's us.
Board members, do you have anything? Director Kleindrop.
When you mentioned like where they're going, are most of these people currently in elementary positions and getting their bachelor's in elementary? I didn't hear you secondary. That's
We actually have a large number of apprentices that are pursuing special education teaching degrees. A lot of paras that are in our special ed program that have just been inspired and are wanting to pursue their degree in that field. So we're really excited about that. We know that that's a high need area for us, and great things coming.
but
And
mostly at the elementary
No,
special
so
ed or all?
this SPED is K-12, and the endorsement that they're doing specifically with Upper Iowa is Strat 1-2 and then BDIDLD. So that's why it's taking them a little bit that extra semester to
Sure.
get done.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Awesome job. Thank you. All right, we will move on to presentations. On CHAMPS, I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you. Tonight, Courtney has brought a team of people with her to discuss CHAMPS in our district, which is the fulfillment of a board request by Vice President Klein-Jerome. So Courtney, I'll turn it over to you and your team.
All right, good evening. We are here to give an update on our CHAMPS implementation as of the end of this school year. So I want to do some quick introductions before we get started. Courtney Olson, Director of Equity and Learning Supports.
Lisa Baxter, Program Director, School Climate Transformation.
Rachel Ivory, Equity and Learning Support Specialist.
Mitchell Derricks, first grade teacher at Madison Elementary.
Brianne Barr, Principal at Madison.
I'm Allison Clapp, Equity and Learning Supports Innovator, assigned to Madison.
All right, so just to refresh your memory, last year we came in front of you with the ask to bring CHAMPS within our district. And where we landed was we decided to do that within our comprehensive buildings this school year. So we shared district data with you that illustrated that a majority of referrals were coming from the classroom. So therefore, we still needed to work on our classroom tier 1 management system of support, and CHAMPS was a vehicle to do that within. And so that's why it'd benefit our system. So what we're bringing forth today is just to share progress on our implementation with CHAMPS. Specifically, we want to talk about how we put CHAMPS within our new teacher or our new teacher induction program. Madison is here to speak as a comprehensive building, how implementation has been going for them, and then next steps for CHAMPS within our district. So the why behind CHAMPS. Our goal is that all students will feel safe, engaged, and connected in Davenport School. And we know today that 1 out of 3 students exhibit social, emotional, and behavioral difficulties that impair their some aspect of their daily functioning, and specifically learning in the classroom. And we know pre-COVID, this was 1 out of 5. So we know these needs for our students are increasing, so we got to continue to develop a system that is responsive to their needs. So why CHAMPS? It's a proactive and positive approach to classroom management. It's a model that aims to improve student behavior and strengthen learner engagement through a strategic system of clearly defined expectations. It helps teachers develop or fine-tune an effective classroom management plan that's proactive, positive, and instructional. And researchers have identified consistent and reliable findings concerning how effective teachers manage student behavior and enhance student motivation. So what does CHAMPS stand for? This is what it stands for. So each of these areas, the teacher clearly defines what this means within their classroom. So conversation is around voice level. Help is how do I ask for help? Activity, what is being asked of me? Movement, what kind of movement is required? Participation, they define what that looks like, and what does success mean. So you can see how this gets very specific and leaves no area for gray for a student to understand what's expected of them, which helps them be successful. This also, as I mentioned, aligns right into our work that we're already doing with PBIS. We've been focusing on Universal Tier 1 for PBS for some time now, and we know a piece of that is classroom management. And again, CHAMPS is just a vehicle for teachers to use to implement classroom management. The desired outcomes for teachers was that teachers will use CHAMP strategies to prevent and manage student behaviors in the classroom. They'll develop and teach their expectations for student behavior. They design efficient schedules and structures for student success, establish and implement consequences for misbehavior, increase instructional time, work completion, and on-task behavior, and decrease office referrals for behavior. So now I'm going to pass it on to Rachel Ivory to speak to what our professional development looked like this year.
Okay, so our focus this year has been on the 5 comprehensive buildings who have received 2 days of training, and then also our beginning educators and our new experienced hires who also received 2 days of training at the beginning of the year. And monthly site visits were also conducted with the focus being that CHAMPS implementation. Okay, so as we talk about implementation science, one of the most important things to remember is that we used to have a train and hope with our professional development, and that's we're finding that's just not effective. So to produce professional behavior change without post-training supports and follow-up, it's just not effective. So we are right now in that initial implementation stage. So you can see the different stages there with that. So active implementation means we're using deliberate strategies to adopt new interventions and integrate them effectively. So in order to support that active implementation, our focus this year has been on active training, shared clarity, ongoing professional learning, coaching, protected time for reflection, collaboration and planning, and creating systems for feedback. And this diagram here just gives you a graphic to understand just kind of at a layered level there what each of those areas are. So their effective adoptions go through a pre-implementation and an active implementation stage. During that process, that base level there are those preconditions, and those are the areas that we are ongoingly supporting. Let's see. Successfully adopting new programs and practices requires focused efforts to change professional practice. So implementation science tells us that programs will have a greater likelihood of success with full implementation, and that could take 2 to 3 years. So we're just starting this CHAMPS implementation this year. So we'll continue with, working through the pre-implementation stage, that active implementation stage, and then continuing with that consistency and continuous improvement throughout.
These next 5 slides were prepared by Lee Cornell and Amber Day Meeker, and they are our teacher leaders responsible for organizing our teacher induction program. They couldn't be here tonight, so I am presenting this information on their behalf. So they wanted me to point out that the first day of training for our new teachers and our new experienced teachers was on August 14th. And we know CHAMPS training is good for all teachers, but we were especially excited to bring this to this group, our brand new teachers at Davenport schools. So they met at the Golden Leave. We had 114 new teachers there. We had our presenter, Robbie, who is a national presenter, top-notch presenter, engaging with them all day. They sat as teams, and they got deep into the handbooks provided by CHAMPS, which are all evidence-based practices. During that day, they really hit the framework of CHAMPS, like the why. Why is this important? They spend a big part of the day on the guidelines for success, which is all about strong teaching, monitoring that teaching, and then having a feedback cycle to your students. Talked about the rules for rules, the importance of attention singles, hit beginning and ending routines very hard, and then that introduction to the CHAMPS expectations that Courtney just went over, clarifying those expectations and the importance of having visual displays, because most of our students are visual learners. So again, this was all very, very relevant to new teachers, to think about and plan for their students prior to that first day of being in that classroom. The second day, October 9th, all our teachers came back together again. This time, our TLCS induction coaches were on contract and were able to join our teachers. And again, they went over that framework again and got deeper into those strategies in the handbook. Amber and Lee wanted me to point out that it wasn't, as Rachel's talked about, just like one and done, 2 days of training and then we put the book away. But they continued to bring CHAMPS into the teacher induction program throughout the year as our new teachers met to reflect on their work. And so one example of this is noted up here, how they reflected on the STOIC problem-solving process for classroom management and also revising or developing their classroom motivation system during that second quarter meeting. Whenever we have professional development in Davenport schools, we always survey our participants. So after we surveyed our beginning educators and new experienced hires on their CHAMPS training, the feedback was very positive. There were very complimentary reviews of the presenter. Teachers commented that the training was very relevant and helpful for their work. And they noted just an appreciation for having the time to focus on what they do, to engage with other colleagues, and to move around. It's not a sit and get training when Robbie's leading CHAMPS. There are a couple testimonials here from some of our teachers. The first one really just highlighted how CHAMPS helped her develop a clear set of expectations, which led to a positive and inclusive learning environment in her classroom. And then the second testimonial talked about the CHAMPS poster, again, helped communicate clear expectations in that classroom. And this last slide summarizes next steps for our teacher induction program. So Amber and Lee have decided to move this to 1 day of training, which we are embedding into the teacher induction program. We're going to utilize Robbie, the same speaker we had before, since that was very effective the first time. Again, they will convene at the Golden Leaf. And this year, we're able to ensure that the induction coaches, our equity and learning supports innovators, our building instructional coaches will all be there to support our beginning educators and our new experienced hires. And principals, we know they are very busy at that time of the year, but they are also invited to join that group. So our teachers will be grouped by building, again, to help develop that collegiality and guide some of those conversations. We want lots of opportunity to collaborate with one another during that time. And then, of course, we will continue to gather input and feedback regarding CHAMPS and its relevance for this group as we continue down this road. So I would like to, at this time, introduce Principal Barr from Madison, and she is going to talk more about CHAMPS in her building.
All right, we're gonna split this up between the three of us, but I'm gonna get us started. So as you can see, we did professional development for CHAMPS at Madison throughout the entire school year. The first 2 sessions were provided by the district at the beginning of the year. And then in order to make sure that Madison continued to learn and grow with CHAMPS, we embedded more professional development, whether it was an in-service day or we did a lot of mini PDs this year at Madison at the end of the school day, just because our building needed some more learning. We organized our PDs with what we were going to be learning about, why we needed to learn about it. There was an opportunity for adult learning, and then there was an accountability piece that teachers needed to utilize to follow up into their classrooms that same week. So we're going to break up our presentation on the different professional development that was provided at Madison. So the first one was just getting the CHAMPS posters in the buildings. This was to increase the visibility of CHAMPS. So it was just our first step. HMH has a WAGGLE program that we utilize for students, and this is a consistent expectation building wide, and it allowed us to create a poster for the building with consistent language. During our AEA sessions, the principals attend for Leading for Impact. They taught us about implementation support, and one of those areas you can see is the queuing system. And this serves as a reminder to teachers. And so we explain the importance of using WAGGLE posters or CHAMPS posters throughout the building. So it's their cueing system to use the CHAMPS language while they're teaching.
And as Rachel said earlier, we had a site visit monthly. So we took our site visit feedback and then that guided what we used from CHAMPS to present to staff. And so from December 8th, our site visit feedback was increase student discourse and expand utilization of the CHAMPS. So then January 2nd, this is what we presented to staff. And so we looked in through our CFL data, from last year, our current data that we had. And the focus of this was just to create teacher awareness and then to use that awareness to help build relationships with students. So then from CHAMPS, we offered 2 different strategies that teachers could use for building relationships, the 2x10 and the positive referral. After kind of digging into our books a little bit, those were just the 2 that we brought up. And then, our next slide. Teachers used their books and selected from the intermittent celebrations of success. This was just a fun way to kind of mix things up a little bit in our classroom and then be looking for those positives. So it was fun. It was something that teachers could implement into their classrooms for different celebrations with their students. We then had teachers stay in the library for time to create a tangible CHAMPS poster. So a lot of teachers were using them digitally, which worked awesome within their lessons, but we also needed that visual cue reminder. So we had everyone stay in the library so that anyone could get support if they needed it while working to make that tangible piece for their classrooms. And then we ended our time for this professional development to go over that STOIC screener. So teachers had the time to go through that screener and see kind of where they successes and maybe some next steps for what they needed on that classroom management screener.
All right, and then in January, after our Department of Ed site visit, our feedback was that we needed to increase student discourse and again expand the explicit utilization of CHAMPS, so we add that extra word in there. So in order to make sure that we were getting this building-wide and incorporating it into our instruction, Allison and I were searching our CHAMPS book to figure out how we could increase student discourse using the CHAMPS framework. So there's a section within the CHAMPS book about partner and cooperative group work, which is essentially student discourse. And so we intentionally planned PD around incorporating that within our math curriculum, which was a new adoption this year as well. We wanted to increase student discourse in math. Go to the next slide. During this professional development, we had our teachers bring their CHAMPS books with them, and we had them engage in reading and highlighting within their CHAMPS books. They also completed a support map to determine if they were a high support classroom or a low support classroom, and then if students in their classroom needed high support or low support. We embedded this work. We embedded work time into our PD just like we did in the previous one, so they had something to take with them to implement into their instruction the next day. This professional development specifically will be very helpful for us next year because as we implement our new curriculum, CKLA Amplify for reading, student discourse is going to be extremely important. So we will definitely be circling back to this professional development to make sure that that's embedded within the reading curriculum as well.
So on this slide, you'll see our site visit feedback is to improve praise to correction ratio and use positive reinforcement to address student behavior. In order to change the climate and culture at Madison, Mrs. Barr at the beginning of the year had that learning objective, and number 1 was she was committed to establishing a positive climate and culture, and that went from the top all the way down and really had a staff buy into it. So we had that at the beginning of the year, and then in April, from our feedback from the site visit, we needed to continue to do that in our classrooms. So we used our CHAMPS book to reiterate that 3-to-1 praise to correction ratio, and then also a quote from CHAMPS. This praise strategy is one of the most essential, but also one of the most difficult to implement. So changing that climate and culture begins with the teachers and changing the way that we do things. And the more we found that the more that we said it in our everyday language and gave that praise, the more the students would be used to it, and it would just naturally come out of us as educators as well. So for learning and support for the implementation, the different types of praise. You have your general praise, your specific praise, and your effective praise, and we always want to get to that effective praise statement, and not just saying, hey, you're doing a great job, give them the reason of why they're doing it and how that impacts their learning in the classroom. And then for our teacher learning, we read the pages listed above out of Champs and reflected on them. We brought our books to PD, had that time to read silently and highlight throughout our books, and then we engaged in conversations with each other as a staff to bounce ideas and kind of talk about the different ways we can implement praise, and then how we are going to bring it to our students. One of the things that we did towards the end of the year was we had an accountability action item. So we each got a piece of paper that had a bullet on it, and we had to write one celebration each day from there, from our classroom, and communicate it with our class and then display it outside of our classroom. And the kids loved walking through the hallway and seeing all the other positive things that were happening. And then to be accountable as a staff, that poster was in our CTT room. And all of us agreed to do that one positive thing, but then we also had different options of an additional positive praise thing that we were going to do to implement the learning that we had.
So this is fresh data that we have for you. It's pretty exciting for us at Madison. This is our CFL data. So the left side you can see was last school year, and then on the right side we have this current school year. We had increases in all of our CFL data, a huge celebration, like I said, for us. One of our Growing Excellence Plan goals for Madison this school year was to increase our student emotional safety score from 13% to 20%. And as you can see this year, we got up to 18%. This was a big celebration for us. And so today, as we were engaging in conversations at our Growing Excellence Day with our BSAT teams, we talked about where these goals need to be going for the next school year. Since we got so close to our goal this year, we decided to increase our emotional safety score next year to get to 28%. And then our other Growing Excellence goal with our CFL data was the student-to-student interactions. And last year we were at 46%. Sorry, they were flipped. And this year we increased that to 61%. We had a 15-point increase for that. So in order to improve that next year, we want to go up another big jump. And so we're hoping to get from 61% to 86% for the next school year. So we have some lofty goals, but we saw a lot of progress this year, and we're excited in the direction that it's going.
All right. Well, congratulations to Madison on that. That's really exciting to see that data change from your very, very hard work. So thank you for that. All right. So next steps with Champs. We want to continue to embed this in our new teacher induction program. Classroom management is something teachers have to do, and so we want to give them resources and skills to help that be easier for them to accomplish, and that's super important for a new teacher coming into the field. So we're committed to continue that. We're also going to continue Champs in our comprehensive buildings to develop school-wide vision for classroom management. So on August 19th, our department, alongside the buildings, are going to develop an individualized Champs PD for them to deliver in their buildings. We're also still working with Champs and want to figure out some type of on-site coaching opportunity for them next year. So that's in the works. But over an ongoing training and coaching plan, because if you think back to that visual we looked at for implementation science, the training is step one, and then it's the implementation, which requires coaching and a plan for that. And then we'll continue monthly site visits for that. And then once we have another year within our comprehensive buildings and we feel like implementation is where we want it to be and we've kind of learned from that, we could consider expanding into other buildings as well, but we're not doing that for next school year. We want to continue the path that we're on. So with that, we'll pause and take any questions.
Director Beck.
Thank you. I have two questions. First, and one yay for those numbers. That was like really, that was the first thing that stuck out to me when I went through this myself. I was really impressed. And I hope that also helps contribute to some of the stability in staff as well, because if students are having better relationships with each other and with the adults in the building, I think that might help decrease staff turnover a little bit, I hope. So 2 things. Number 1, how did we decide to use like safe and civil schools versus some other program? Because I know CHAMPS is a much more general framework for things. And then my other question is sort of, I'm still not super clear on how this is different from like other ways of implementing PBIS. So for example, like we have posters in like every school building with, you know, the expectations, and it's still unclear to me what is different about this compared to other PBIS programming that we're still running in other schools.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start with your first question. So Safe and Civil Schools is just the company, and CHAMPS is a product from that company. And so that's how that is connected. How we learned about CHAMPS was through our Department of Ed visits last year at our comprehensive buildings, and it was a recommendation. It was identified in our comprehensive buildings that classroom management needed to be a goal area, and they just recommended this as a product that they had seen successful in other places. And so that's how we learned about CHAMPS, and then our department researched it ourselves and felt that it met the need of our district, and that's when we brought it forth to you.
And is this the one that the Department of Ed offered to pay for as well? Is that something different?
They recommended it. There was never money tied to paying for this.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I must be thinking of something else.
Yep.
And then related to your second question, so PBIS is a framework. PBIS says we have to have different things, features in place, but it's very broad. So PBI says you have to have expectations. What CHAMPS does is it gives you the actual procedures. So you need expectations for whole group instruction. You need expectations for small group instruction. You need expectations when kids work in a group. That's what CHAMPS gives us. And they pull together all these different evidence-based procedures and practices to help us develop expectations. And that's just one example.
Yep, I can add to, speaking of staff retention, I have no hires to make this summer. So that is also a huge celebration for Madison. But this school year, we had a lot of new teachers in the building. And when they come into a building as a brand new teacher, they don't really know exactly what to say and what to do. They get the best that they can from college, but when you're in real life, it's a little bit different. And so CHAMPS gives them the guidelines of what language they should be saying and doing, and the cueing system that helps them incorporate it into their instruction.
Yeah, and I would just say that like PBIS is like the what, and the CHAMPS is like the tangible, how do I actually meet those expectations in the rubric of the PBIS? So it's like, oh, I can go to page 400 and I can get my, how am I going to do this in my classroom?
So PBIS also says you have to have a team. You have to have a team that meets monthly. You have to have a data, so it's just one of those features.
Director Klein-Jerome.
So these 5 schools are not doing PBIS at all?
No, they are doing PBIS. PBIS is the framework that we're operating in. CHAMPS helps us actualize a universal practice within PBIS.
Because having done PBIS, a lot of this seems PBIS-ish.
Yeah,
So,
it's related.
I mean, I'm not
Mhm.
sure it's a whole lot different, but I guess you said it's more the nuts and bolts of it. Okay.
Yeah.
But everybody is doing it. What if you have an outstanding teacher in your building that they don't need this? They've got their classroom management down. What are we doing there?
Bree's going to respond to that.
It was the expectation at Madison that when we did the professional learning that every teacher applied it to their classroom. So we had consistent language and consistent expectations across the building. So that way, no matter what adult was speaking to you, no matter what adult was in your classroom, you knew what the expectations were, which helped increase our student engagement in the lessons and decrease the amount of disruptions that were occurring.
So the answer is everybody's having to do it, whether they're top of the line or just starting new.
We have some very strong teachers at Madison that have been there for many years, and this has also been extremely helpful. Mr. Derricks is one of them, so I'll let him talk.
So I've been at Madison for 7 years, and when I first came into the district, I got trained on Boys Town, and that was more of the behavior reaction to it. But I would say Champs gives us more of the, this is what it looks like when we're doing small groups. Your center leader comes over to me to talk to me. This is how we move about in the classroom. When you hear this signal, it lays out everything, and then by having all of those areas, no matter if my kids go to music, gym, art, they have their Champs expectations that are very similar to ours. And one of the things that I liked about Champs too was it gives us the opportunity to give more feedback to our students and give them that praise when they're doing the right thing right away, because they know this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. So it creates a more positive climate and culture in your classroom. And then, like Mrs. Barr said, decreases those behaviors, and you can use Champs to go back to do that reteaching on what the expectations of everything are.
I think it's bringing just more continuity to the building. It's something where we can pick up where we left off this coming school year, just from the one we left. And no matter whether they were a kindergarten student going into first grade or they're a third grade student going into fourth grade, they're still going to understand what Champs language is. So I think it's setting the teachers up for the upcoming school year in a better place than they started this current school year.
The site visits, are they district site visits, or is it the state site visits, or all of the above?
All the above. It's collaborative between the Department of Ed, the AEA, and district.
We got into this because of office referrals, and yet none of your data is telling us whether this year that's made a difference. And you have 5 schools participate, but we're only seeing 1. So I guess I would have liked to have seen our office referrals down in those 5 buildings, because that was a big deal when we were told, oh, this is the program to do it.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And what we're learning through implementation science is we would never expect the student outcome data to change in year 1 of implementation, because it's really about the adult behavior and making sure we're implementing as we've been trained to do. So that has been the focus. And I think Madison did a great job illustrating that's how they were supporting their teachers throughout the year to make sure we were implementing with fidelity. And we do have Madison here tonight, but I will say all 5 buildings were doing that throughout this school year. So pretty exciting to see change in CFL data already, and we'll be looking for change in that referral data in years to come.
And in the future, I guess that's what I would like to focus on versus that state survey that I question anyway. But yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Hang on one second. Director Potts, and I forgot to mention Director Potts is online. Did you have any questions?
No, I just, I came to the party late.
Well, I wasn't going to bust you out, but you did it. Director Beck.
Yeah, sorry, I just forgot my other question. So all of this is about consistency for the students and the adults in the building. How do you handle guest teachers who may or may not have been in your building before?
Right, so the the posters are the queuing system for those guest teachers. The students have learned the language, so they, I would say, even tell guest teachers what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, because it's just been a visual and, like I said, consistent language used throughout. But I'll let Mitchell talk a little bit more about that.
Something else that we did at the beginning of the school year that Mrs. Barr set the standard for was having good detailed sub-plans as well. So if I'm having a guest teacher, I'm leaving in my sub-plans refer to the Champs poster and move the arrows to these different areas on there so the kids can have consistency even though we're not there.
So basically building in some of the procedures into that plan so that the sub teacher knows exactly what to do.
Yep, and we did have some long-term subs in the building due to maternity leaves and health leaves this year, and Ms. Clapp and some of our other instructional coaches did coaching with them in the classroom, since they were going to be with those students for an extended amount of time to make sure that the implementation continued.
Okay.
Director Barnes. Well, first, Madison, congratulations. Those are great results. And given the fact that these at least appear to be great results, I think we probably all like to see arrows that are in green and moving in the right direction. The last bullet, potential to expand CHAMPS to other buildings in the future as time permits. One would think that classroom behavior is something that we would want to prioritize. So where does that, what's sort of crowding out this as we're thinking about other buildings?
I would say that we want to make sure that, again, we're solid in supporting buildings and implementing it with fidelity. If we want to make sure as a district we're strong and not just getting them the professional learning, but making sure the supports are wrapped around them so that they can support it in the way that they want to support it. So I think I 100% agree with you. And I remember a year ago, we were talking about, let's get it out to everybody. And I think we had a really important conversation here about not just starting everywhere and starting small. And so I think that'll be a decision we'll have to make probably mid-year next year, is if we're going to add on other buildings the following year.
I appreciate that answer, and that's a good answer. And I think that's the way that we should approach this. At the same time, if the real results we want to see are multi-year, every semester we delay, we don't see the results that we want to see. So, but I appreciate that and understand completely where you're coming from.
Yeah, no. That's a good point. New hires are getting it. New hires and new teachers, so that's getting into our system. And I will say, August a year ago, when we did a professional learning with all leaders, just to give some awareness to it, principals were really excited about it. So I do think there's an appetite for it. It's just making sure we can support it.
Superintendent Schneckloff.
To piggyback off what Courtney said, as a team, we look at our 3-year plan of what we have to implement over the next 3 years and the cognitive load that's going to be placed on our K through 12 teachers with implementing the new math series, the new reading series. That is a lot. So going to the places with the highest needs first was very strategic, and also the lift of letters, the lift of Amplify coming on the heels of our math curriculum. We knew that statement is very intentional. As the time permits, this will come on. And it is a very natural fit for our instructors because of the structural PBIS work that has been done. And now getting into those core teaching concepts is very vital. And so some of those things will happen organically in our district, but the professional development that Ms. Barr has done in her building will be rolled out when the cognitive lift is not so heavy for our teachers. That's an excellent question, and we feel the exact same way.
Director Hayes.
So I know your numbers couldn't be accurate at all now, but just since this has been implemented, can you give an estimate of approximately what the percentage in decline would be for referrals? Have you noticed a significant decline?
I'm going to be completely transparent with you and tell you that our referrals increased this year. But I am a new principal coming in, and I had a lot of new systems that I put in place. And one of those systems was making sure that we had correct data collected throughout the year so we could be responsive to student need. In our student intervention team meetings, we meet weekly for academics, attendance, and social emotional. We do them separately, so we make sure we give them the time and attention that they need. And so I'll let Mr. Derricks talk a little bit more about the difference between last school year and this school year, and the difference in behaviors that were in the building.
So with our previous principal and assistant, or previous Sam, a lot of the staff, to be honest with you, didn't feel like there was a lot of support. So when we wrote referrals, there wasn't necessarily a follow through on it. We were waiting 15 minutes, 20 minutes for a first responder to come in and help us. Whereas this year, Mrs. Barr and Mr. Hilmer set that expectation and that system in place that when you call, there is going to be somebody that is going to come and support you because you've exhausted everything with CHAMPS, you've exhausted everything that you know to do as a teacher. And also looking at the referral data, the amount of students who were getting the referrals was different. It was just that we had permission and that follow through to actually write the referrals. So last year, it wasn't that the behaviors weren't happening as often, they were. It just wasn't being documented because there wasn't necessarily any follow through on it.
Director Klein-Jerome.
DJ, I'd like to thank you for recognizing, if you put one more thing on teachers' plates, with all that we have put in new curriculum, they're gonna go over the top and bail on us. And so I appreciate the fact that you recognize not one more thing for a while.
Yeah. Especially for the other staff too, the support staff. We always forget those folks. Director Poston.
So going back to when we started implementing PBIS, was it, I don't remember anything being projected that there would be something needed additionally to support PBIS. Was that the plan all along, that we were going to have to add to PBIS?
Yeah.
So the framework and the structure of PBIS, which helps us establish our school-wide expectations, which helps establish different expectations in our buildings. It helps establish systems of how we talk about students. It helps us monitor those systems so they take inventories on themselves and the staff take inventory. So that structure of that. The second we implemented PBIS, we knew where the most impact would happen is when we would start impacting our instruction. Where the biggest misconception is that PBIS has a very well dialed in classroom framework. And while it's there, this is better. And so what does instruction look like? Because teaching behaviors is instruction. As Willie will say, discipline has a root of teaching, right, Willie? And so we knew in our journey that we were going to get to this spot. Where we were getting ready to implement that was right in the middle of our conditional accreditation and pandemic. So that stuff kind of hit us. We had a huge turnover in staff. When we stabilized our staff, that's when the recommendation came in. So we were creating our own things, our own materials, our own lessons, our own. So Courtney's team, what we did is we went and found research-based products like our SEL curriculum and CHAMPS to help bring that learning about social emotional learning inside of our classroom. So that kind of is where we were and where we were going. We always knew we were going to get to a spot where we were going to have to put our human beings in a room and create what this has, and really the timing of it came along, and this board pushed us like, why this? And we looked at it, we reviewed it, and like, this is really good stuff. We talked to a consultant. So that's the journey that we were here. And I think that's a big misconception with like PBIS solves everything. You still need to supplement positive behavior intervention systems, PBIS. So we always knew we were headed down that path. The person that was in that role before was Marty Schultz, who is now the principal at Jefferson Elementary. And he had a website. It was created. We were beginning to work on some of this CHAMPS type materials. And then that event occurred. On the backside of it, this team of people were hired. We investigated it, and it was the best way to move forward for us. Anything to add? That's
I
kind of a little
just-
bit of the history.
Yeah, I just don't. I think the best word is tangible, and I love your guys' agreement. Like, it's tangible and digestible for teachers. So we knew we needed classroom management system. We knew we needed clear expectations around every instructional activity in our classroom. What does that look like? What does that mean? And so for CHAMPS to come in and lay it out through STOIC and their acronym of CHAMPS, as a teacher, it just felt easier, it seemed like. Okay, thank you.
So do you feel that you're going to have to add any more to PBIS? I mean, with CHAMPS and PBIS together, will that take care of all the needs for this program?
So PBIS is the framework of MTSS. It's not a standalone product. It's what we need. We need things at universal. We need things that are targeted. We need things that are intensive level. So what we've done is we've well defined that at our universal, with CHAMPS being how we implement classroom management. When we say classroom management in Davenport and our comprehensive buildings, it's through CHAMPS. We've defined that across our district with our social emotional learning curriculum, Character Strong. We know we need that. That's what we're using for that. So it's not like check the box, it's done. We're still building and designing based off the framework of PBIS.
So what you're saying is there could be more added to this yet?
I'm not sure what you mean by added.
Just to supplement, like CHAMPS is supplementing PBIS. Is there going to be more programs?
CHAMPS wouldn't be, maybe this will be helpful. CHAMPS isn't supplementing it, CHAMPS is actualizing it.
Okay. Well, you know, when I look at some of this, and don't get me wrong, I think it's good what you're doing and everything, and I appreciate the comments from the teacher, and I have been in your room, and I appreciate what you do in your room. But for me, and this may be way too simplified, but to me, some of this is just common sense. You know, that I don't think we have to sometimes get so elaborate that we can't just use our common sense as far as how we're going to attend to some of the behavioral issues that are in the classroom. But that might be too simplified, and again, I applaud you for the effort that you're putting forth.
Director Beck.
Okay, I think I can clarify this maybe. So PBIS is this idea that we do positive things, positive interventions to help support students, whether that be academic, in the classroom, with their emotional health, behavior, whatever. CHAMPS is a way of delivering that in the classroom. So a teacher might know they're supposed to praise a child 3 times for every correction they make, but this says if the child is not on task, here's what you can say to redirect that child, and here are 3 ways that you can praise the child later. So CHAMPS is like a delivery method for one part of PBIS. Am I interpreting that properly?
Yes, that's a good interpretation of it. As much as I would like to say that every teacher comes in well prepared to be able to do all of these things, you know, like that it is common sense, there's always people on different ends. And so those people who need the explicit language, me telling them you have to say these things and do these things, it helps them become a better teacher and helps the other students in that classroom be able to learn more. And when you have a very strong teacher, such as Mr. Derrick's over here, he's able to take what he already does and just morph that into using the CHAMPS language, so we have the continuity across the building.
Thank you.
I don't got anything for you. All my questions were answered. So great job. Way to knock it out of the park. Keep up the good work. Thank you. We will move on to board reports. Are there any board reports? Everybody's hands be shooting up, man. We had graduation. Director Hayes.
I would like to express the board's condolence to the Moore family. Reuben Moore lost his mother just recently, and the board would like to express our condolence for that. And yes, graduation was wonderful and long as usual, but it was worth it all.
Thank you. Any other board reports? The only thing I got, earlier today, we attended the State of the City address, and they did talk about us building the new schools and the investment and some of the hard decisions we've had to make along the way. And then, obviously, graduations was phenomenal. It's a long day, but it's always awesome seeing those kids go across the stage. If there are no other board reports, I'll move on to communicate. Oh, Director Hayes.
In graduation, I would like to also express that this was the first year in a long time that every single one of our graduates had their hands shook by every board member. No one sat down. Normally we'll do 80-ish and take a break and come back, but every board member shook every hand this year, and that was a plus for me.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other board reports, we'll move on to communications. Open forum, I don't believe there are any virtual open forums, but we do have an in-person one. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's website for those who want to participate virtually. Virtual participants must email their request to Brenda T. at tbrin@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the time allowed for individuals to speak. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. You will be asked to state your name and home address prior to making remarks. To participate virtually, call 1-312-626-6799 and enter meeting ID 955-6741-5319, passcode 908248. Seeing only one open forum request, Michael Trujillo, did I say it right? No? Trujillo, sorry. 2 minutes, sir. Just make sure you push that button in green light.
My name is Michael Trujillo. I want to explain a bit about why I'm here. I attempted to rectify something via email. The agenda didn't come out until Friday evening, and people have been busy all day long in the offices. I'm a teacher at Davenport Central. I've been there for 28 years. For 26 of those years, I've been track and field coach. 22 of those years as head coach. I've been head cross-country coach for 9 years. And I'm here in that connection because there's an item in the consent agenda, which is coming up next, that is not correct. And I wanted to be sure that the board did not unknowingly approve something that was a false statement. And that is in the consent agenda under personnel, under resignations and additional contracts, starting on pages 5 on to page 7. I'm listed as resigning from my position as track and field and cross-country coach, and that is not true. I don't know how we proceed from this. I don't know if we need to make an amendment, if we need to push it to another meeting, but I wanted to be aware that I did not resign from my position.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board accept the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Is there any discussion?
I move that we, under 6.05 personnel, that we pull Mike Trujillo's resignation at this time.
And have it on the agenda for the next regular board meeting?
And put it on the agenda next meeting.
Consent agenda.
Okay, put it on the consent agenda for the next meeting, regular meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ivy, you're keeping track of all this, right? Okay. I'm recording it too. All right, so no, you can vote no on it. So to be clear, the motion on the floor now is to accept the consent agenda minus
Mike Trujillo's resignation.
Michael Trujillo's resignation.
No, we moved and seconded removing him from the agenda.
I got to call the vote.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm calling the vote for the consent agenda minus that part.
I thought we had to
We're
vote on the
polling him.
change
He's
first.
being pulled.
We don't have to vote on the change?
All we need to do is pull him. That's it.
It seems weird. Do it in reverse order. You had the first motion, then you had the amended motion. Vote on the amended motion. If that approves, then you vote on the motion with the amendment as your final.
Okay. All right, so I was on the right track. Okay. All right. Is everyone clear on what the motion is? To remove?
Mike Trujillo from.
No, I'm just saying just to remove.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Is there any other discussion on that part? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the. I don't need to do a roll call on that, right? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. All right, may I have a motion on the consent agenda? Minus that.
We already have that
I
motion.
can go back to that now. All right, cool. Is there any other discussion on the rest of the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Had to make sure I got that right for Brenda. All right, superintendent report.
None at this time.
Committee reports. Before I go down the list, does anyone actually have committee reports? I know the finance committee, but yep. All right, so we will do finance committee. Turn it over to Director Post.
We had a short finance meeting last month, and this would have been last 2 weeks ago, but I wasn't here, so it was put on tonight's agenda. Very quickly on the monthly report, there's not a lot to report on here when you have 2 months left of the year, but April, one of the unique things about April is we got our second large tax payment, so those numbers jumped from March to April. You can still see that we're doing pretty well, other than we're doing well as far as comparison year to year, and our federal revenues are up for the same ESSER reasons. Our supplies and materials are a little bit high. I didn't highlight those, but that's a lot of the curriculum purchase by. But the one thing I did want to point out on the sales tax, the PEPL, and the other funds, it's on page 2. If you go to page 2 on that, Ivy, one thing I've been promising you, we are showing a negative amount in the other fund 30. You'll see that our bond revenue is deposited, and you'll see that we had almost $83 million of bond revenue deposited as promised. You can see where our balance is. What we're going to see over time is we're going to see that going to zero. That's what we want to do. We'll be adding a layer of report on this going forward. Get to the end of the year, share a report, and move on a regular basis for that, because that's all of the projects that we're doing. So you'll see a little bit more detail of that broken out going forward. Any questions on the monthly report? On the, oh, sorry.
Did you have some? Oh, I thought you were waving your hand there.
Sorry. On the key measures report, you'll see that our UAB ratio is projected to be at 14.5%. We were expecting it to be a little under 12%. We've had a lot of jumps over the last couple years, so you can kind of see it starting to slow down to be at a rate that's still in the acceptable range, but it's a good UAB ratio to be at. You can see that our projected usage of our UAB is at 94.9%. Our target was to be just under 100%. That's part of the leveling of that we talk about on a regular basis. That's where our vacancies come in. And the last part is our solvency ratio. If you remember at the last meeting when we adopted our budget, that's going to correct itself. The only thing I wanted to mention too in our negative amounts at the bottom right corner, that is before we did our amendment last month. So that is not updated. So just so you know, those red numbers are there because I did not update that. And that's it for that report.
All right, thank you, Kevin. That conclude the financial report. All right. We will move on to items requiring action. Before I ask for a motion on this one, Ivy, can you cue up the video, or Tim, or whoever's doing it?
A few years ago, when I became board president, we started a new tradition in Davenport schools. This is the Graduation Outstanding Spirit Award, the traveling trophy. Each year, the winning school will have their school and class engraved on this. The winning school will have this in their building for the duration of the year to come back for next year. The way to win this is to have the loudest and proudest audience here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have all the seniors stand up. I want you to look out into the crowd, find your family and friends, and give them a wave. And then family and friends, I want you to let these graduates know how proud you are.
Go ahead. Come on now, let's win this thing. We won it last year. Let's go.
There you go. Seniors, please stand and look out to the audience. Try to find your family and friends. Give them a wave. Parents and family members and friends, it is your chance to show your graduates just how proud you are of them. Let them hear you.
Let's go, Falcons. We've won this before. I want to win it again. Let's go. Let's go. We got to do that one more time. Graduates, you can clap as well, too. I do not like to lose. Let's go. We've won this before. Let's go again. Falcon Nation, let's hear ya. There we
Graduates, seniors, please stand and look out to the audience. Try to find your family and friends. Give them a wave. Hype them up.
Should we just take it home now?
There you go. go. All right. I would entertain a motion on the graduation spirit award. No, she laid it out for me. We pulled. You want me to do that? I can pull you.
I'll put somebody out there. Mr. President,
Director Flandro.
I move that North High School be awarded the Spirit Award for the 2024 graduation ceremony.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Director Beck.
Coming back to the loudest and proudest, I have been having a mental debate for the last week over North versus Mid-City because both were extremely loud and extremely proud this year. Not that Central and West weren't, they were, but those were the two that stuck out to me as the most notable. And that is with Mid-City in a smaller space with smaller people, or not smaller people, smaller group of students. But they filled the space that they had available, which, if I remember correctly, in past years has not always happened, but it was pretty much full this year. And given that it is also the proudest, I'm hard pressed to find a more proud group of families than at Mid-City's graduation this year.
Any other discussion? All right. Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign?
Me. Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.02, meal prices for 2024-25?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the food nutrition service meal prices for the 24-25 school year as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.03, policies for approval?
Mr. President,
Director Klein Jerome.
I move the board approve the following policy 605.08 on artificial intelligence in the educational environment.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. We'll take a quick 5-minute break before we go into discussion items.
Thank you.
All right, we are back and we will move on to discussion items. Our first subject for discussion is 10.01, Special Education Service Delivery Plan. I'll turn it over to Superintendent.
Good evening again. So Aaron Rome and I are going to present to you our proposed district-developed service delivery plan for special education. So every 5 years, school districts have to review their special education delivery plan and bring it forth to the board for approval. So tonight, we're going to be reviewing it with you and answering any questions. So I'm just going to orient us to our table of contents because there are questions here that every district must answer when developing their plan. So the questions are: what process was used to develop delivery system for eligible individuals? How will services be organized and provided to eligible individuals? Our task team opted to add a glossary of terms to clarify vocabulary that we'll be using throughout. The third question is: how will caseloads of special education teachers be determined and regularly monitored? What procedures will a special education teacher use to resolve a caseload concern? How will the delivery system for eligible individuals meet the targets identified in the state's performance plan and the LEA determination as assigned by the state? What process will be used to evaluate the effectiveness of the delivery system for eligible students? And lastly, what are our plan assurances? So this next page represents the stakeholders that were part of our committee. So we had AEA representation, we had administrative advisors, parents of students who are receiving services, general education teachers, special education teachers, and then additional special education staff from our department. Following this table is our timeline of tasks that we completed in preparation and being in front of you tonight. So last July, we had 2 full days with our task team that I just described the membership of. We took recommendations from there and throughout this year, piloted components of what we're proposing to you tonight, made refinements throughout. We also had this draft posted publicly for public comment for 1 week. This had to get approved by the Special Education Director, Kim Hoffman, and that happened on June 6th. We did note we did not have that up there. We will get that added to the timeline because that is one of the things that has to occur. And then we're here tonight in front of you for discussion, and then we'll be at our next June board meeting for vote. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to really just highlight what are the things we changed or evolved from our most current plan.
Yeah, so a lot of discussion over those 3 days was around, I'd say, particularly pages 4 through 11. So Courtney is at the section that we initially focused on, and that was broadening or defining like roles and responsibilities with that continuum of service that we provide within Davenport. So one of the particular areas that was added was that far right column for our dual endorsed preschool teachers. We had some feedback that it was a new model that we went to beginning this school year of having more inclusive preschool teachers. So we want to make sure that that was represented on our continuum too of roles and responsibilities within there. So that was a significant change from about 5 years ago when we last did this plan. And if you scroll down to where it's the caseload determination matrix, that's probably where the lion's share of our conversation was around. And so we had a lot of good discussion as a committee. We looked at other service delivery plans across the state of Iowa. We looked at ones from neighboring school districts. We looked at some that were in similar size and nature as to Davenport schools, other UEN school districts. And we looked at questions, items that we thought reflected kind of our priorities. One of the main themes was having questions that articulate not just a caseload, so just how many students might you have on a roster, but your workload. And so we were very intentional with looking at questions that found that balance of how many students you might have on your assigned roster or caseload, but also to the day in and day out, what might be things that better capture the essence of your day and your work week. And so a lot of the questions were pulled from other service delivery plans that we liked with some tweaking and refinements there. And so with that, with a new product, we wanted to put that in front of special education teachers within Davenport to get an idea, was this reflective of kind of what their caseload workload was. And so we did that this year with Ms. Olson's recommendation. And so we had a small group of people within our department look at that, get additional feedback from special education teachers, make additional tweaks, and then we put for public comment where we had, I'd say, some good pieces of feedback there. So we heard from parents and teachers. We really encouraged our teachers to provide another way to provide feedback. And so themes that we took and we applied it was when it came to different special education teachers. So we have strategist 1, strategist 2 that target working with students with intellectual disabilities, also some significant behavioral or social emotional needs. So they thought having a stratification of a point threshold. So if you scroll down, Ms. Olson, to the very bottom of that matrix, you wanted to capture that not every threshold would be the same because what that threshold might be might vary for different teachers. So for instance, we didn't want to have, for our Strat 1 teachers, they might have a higher caseload naturally, but they might not have the same types of services or supports that a Strategist 2 teacher might have. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a more representative or reflective and respectful caseload number that was based on the teacher caseloads that were filled out second semester this school year. So that's what that refers to, is that could be a ceiling of which teachers might have point values for, if that makes sense. Other things that we looked at too was, let me see, anything else? I'd say that was the main, in terms of public comment. I know there were a couple questions about the location of that. We are looking at our website to make sure that it's more accessible and visible for those to, if they want to review that. I think that's probably all that I have for the matrix.
Yeah, so public comment, it was posted on the banner. If you just go to our main webpage, it was also within district news, and it also got emailed out to all families who have students receiving IEPs. So that is how we collected public comment. Another question that came up is when you look at our table of our continuum, it looks similar to the template that is on our state website, and that is common to start with that and build upon it. So where we really focused was on the roles of the different stakeholders who help actualize that service on the continuum. All right. Yeah. All right, so we will stop and answer questions.
Director Kleindrew.
Caseloads for special ed teachers. I think that's great that we're doing that. What about the gen ed teachers that's got 5 or 6 special ed kids in their class? Are we ever looking at that? Especially when you have some that are, and I have had this, I've had 3 BD kids in my class and 2 other special ed kids in my class, and it's like, but nobody takes that into account for the gen ed teachers.
Yeah. I appreciate the question. This specifically would be for special education teachers. So Aaron and I can't speak to that consideration.
Thank you.
Yes.
Director Poston.
This may not be directly related to this, but I do have a couple questions as far as staffing. So here lately, there's been some hires. I don't know if these are new positions or whether they're filling spots that were vacated. Can explain to me what the difference is between a special ed specialist and a special ed facilitator?
With the special education facilitator, those assignments are typically assigned to particular buildings. So we see them as being instructional supports and leaders to our special ed department. So usually they have a building-based assignment support in that way. Our specialists are district-wide support. So they might have a specialty in the area of reading or math or around transition. So they have a particular focus area in which they're a district-wide support for our special education department and general education staff too.
None of these positions, they wouldn't be in the classroom at any time.
They're full release staff, so.
They're full release staff, but the facilitators are instructional coaches, so they would be in classroom supporting teachers as well as our specialists.
Okay. So do you know, so there were 3 positions that were just filled for facilitators. Are those additional facilitators or just filling slots that were vacated?
Those are filling vacancies. So we lost a handful last year and we're not able to find qualified candidates to fill all of those. So we didn't hire all of them. And so we were still filling vacancies from a prior year.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Beck.
Yeah, I have 2 questions now. Thank you for answering all my earlier questions. I appreciate that. So the first one was the AEA reps. They were social workers and not special ed people, I guess is the right word. I don't know what the right word is. Why is that?
So the special education director for the AA is responsible for either being at those or appointing someone to attend those.
Okay.
So they were appointed by the special ed director from the
Okay,
AA.
and then she sees it anyway. And then my other question was about the question on processes used to evaluate the effectiveness of delivery. And so what is that, page 17? It lists a whole bunch of sort of different meetings and that data will be evaluated, but it doesn't have specific things that you guys will be looking at. So, looking for progress in, oh, it was a page above that, sorry. Yeah, that one. So it says what process will be used to evaluate the effectiveness of the delivery system for eligible individuals. And I know that doesn't mean, there's not like a number. Students who have an IEP have to have an IEP, but like, are there specific types of data you look at? The amount of progress monitoring or something like that? Things that I know in the past maybe we didn't do way back in the day very well. It seems to me that this is a very general idea of evaluation, and that I don't know if that's, obviously it's acceptable, but like, is that the best way to describe how we're gonna evaluate the effectiveness, and what really do we look for?
I would say a lot of those are embedded opportunities where we disaggregate data by different subgroups. And so special education students with IEPs are one disaggregated subgroup that we look at throughout all those meeting structures. So those are built-in times and opportunities where we're looking at overall data, but also looking at how do our students with disabilities perform as well.
Okay, and so there's not something we're looking for specifically, like, now we're doing 100% progress monitoring, or we've 80% or whatever of students who need to be monitored are getting monitored or something like that. That's sort of finer level that might happen at the building level, or is that the kind of thing that is sort of applies to everyone, so it's not just special ed?
With specific to progress monitoring, that is something that from our department, we send out monthly reports to the buildings so that they're aware of that we're on time and targeted with our progress monitoring. And if we see any issues, that's data that principals have at their fingertips, and our special education facilitators too. Yep.
Director Barnes.
This may be connected. I'm not absolutely sure, but I see on pages, what is that, 4 through 7, all of these listed responsibilities and sort of like endless lists by category. How are the individuals assessed on those responsibilities? I mean, they're clearly aware that they are responsible for these, but where is the assessment of competency, of excelling in regard to accountability for those responsibilities? And that may be a tough question to answer, but there does sort of seem to be there should be a yin and a yang there.
Yeah.
I would say the best ways through the IEP process is making sure that A lot of these people are required IEP team members. So part of that would be making sure that there's a general understanding of what their responsibility based on what kind of support is needed for the student with that particular kind of service delivery model for them. So that's the one way that I would say that. Anything else you would say, Courtney?
It just listening to you ask that question made me think about crosswalking this with our like teacher standards, right? I could see there being a connection there. So a future thing about.
Director Potts, did you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Director Postian?
I don't think you mentioned this before, but what kind of turnout did you have on the survey responses?
When teachers filled out the caseload matrix or the public feedback?
Public feedback.
I would say it was a mixture. I'd say it was about equal of the number of parents and the number of teachers that responded. Probably more so, a little bit more parents, I would say. Themes for the parent feedback was, I think there was general department recommendations or inquiries that they had for individual like students. Maybe it was like their personal child that they had questions about. I would say that those are kind of the general themes. We did have a couple that gave specific comments on the plan.
So do you know how many number-wise?
I'd say it was anywhere from like 15 to 20 parents that responded.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to subject 10.02 Eastern Iowa Community College Connections Program MOU.
As Allie comes up, this past year has been a big year. New chancellor at EICC, Dr. Wee. Where the local schools are with the community colleges is that we are in a transition, I would say, in terms of what does on-campus classes look like and what do concurrent enrollment classes look like. And so before we renewed the MOU, we wanted Allie to give us a presentation today. It's important for us to know that there's a group of superintendents that represent our area that negotiate with Eastern Iowa Community College on our behalf, and we have Davenport Schools has a lot of input into that. I do want to thank Dr. Wee and his leadership at EICC, because before his arrival, it was very tumultuous, and we've arrived at a spot that will allow the conversation to continue. And so we are going to recommend approving the MOU on the 24th. But I think it's where we are, it's really important for us to know the landscape because we think this is something that's going to change over the next 10 years drastically for public education. So Allie has a very long presentation for us that she's going to simplify.
I'm going to talk fast.
The best that she can. So Allie, thanks for joining us today. And Diane obviously will jump in any spot that she can.
I promised TJ that I would talk fast, so I will. I handed out these slides because there's a lot of fiddly stuff in there, and I wanted you to be able to look at them and take notes right on the slides. Like TJ said, there was a group of superintendents. I did get to be a part of that negotiation team, so feel free to ask me any questions about that process. We sign our MOA every single year for College Connections with Eastern Iowa Community College, and this is where the negotiation team ended up. So some goals for this evening: talk about the state of concurrent enrollment in DCSD, what are our Iowa Code obligations and responsibilities, the overview of just the changes, and then next steps and plans going forward. So let's quickly talk about the state of concurrent enrollment in DCSD. Now, most of us know concurrent enrollment through the North Dual Enrollment Academy, but North High School is not the only place that we have concurrent enrollment courses. We had 2,571 unique concurrent courses taken by unique students in courses taken across DCSD campuses over this past year. The North Dual Enrollment Academy hosted 84 freshmen, 90 sophomores, 68 juniors, and 47 seniors. They have accepted 90 freshmen for this next school year. Our fall 2023 bill from EICC for concurrent enrollment was about $270,000, and our spring bill was about $316,000. You can see that our spring semester tends to be a lot more classes than our fall semester. Something that is really important to take note of is that we basically have two different versions of concurrent enrollment, and this is where the stuff gets a little fiddly. We have concurrent enrollment and individual enrollment. We pay for both of them. So concurrent enrollment is where students take courses in DCSD buildings with either a DCSD teacher that is certified to teach the course by EICC or an EICC instructor, but they're on our campus and they're only full of our students. Individual enrollment is when students take courses on EICC's campus or online in a general population course. So let's quickly talk through some Iowa Code obligations and responsibilities. What must we do and what must we follow in order to make sure that we're in line with what's called Senior Year Plus? Senior Year Plus is the umbrella term for programs that provide high school students access to courses that have the potential to generate college credit. If you click on that link, it'll take you to the whole guide. It's really long. My version of that is all underlined and tabbed and ready to go. I can probably give you lots of information about it. But an important piece of this is what we're talking about are called contracted courses. So these are courses that are completed by students under a contract between the school district and the community college. In order to be a contracted course, you have to annually approve a list of concurrent courses that fall under this agreement. We do that as a part of our course guide. This last year, it was the very last page in our course guide. It was the listing of all concurrent courses. You must approve a list of eligibility guidelines for students to enroll concurrent courses. Again, this is offered as a part of our course guide. And the district must offer AP programs and classes. This is part of Iowa Code. We are not obligated to offer concurrent courses or contracted courses directly with the community college. We cannot restrict the number of credits a student may take under our contracted agreement. This used to be a thing, right? We'd be able to say that a student may only take 2 courses a year or 2 courses a semester. We can no longer do that, so long as all of those courses that they want to take are on our approved list. Students cannot audit courses or take a course for just high school credit and not college credit. Senior Year Plus courses must supplement, not supplant, meaning we can't use them for accreditation purposes. And we can't limit the modality of how a student takes a course, meaning if we offer it on the DCSD campus, they can choose to take it individually with the EICC. For example, if we say that we're going to offer Comp 1 or Composition 1 on our campuses, if a student doesn't want to take it on our campus, they can choose to take it online. We fund all of this with supplemental weighting. Supplemental weighting is generated a lot of different ways. But we're looking specifically at how Iowa Code allows us to report our concurrent courses and what that generation looks like. In this particular context, these are additional funds used to support students in the delivery and successful completion of concurrent enrollment courses. We can use those funds to pay for tuition, books, course and material fees, and transportation for those students should they need it to the place of enrollment. We're going to go through the formula. The reason we're going through the formula is because this is what took up almost 4 months of the negotiations. So this is a really important thing to kind of understand, and it's also a little fiddly. And 2 words in this MOA were argued over for months. So we're going to talk a little bit about, okay, so in order to understand the formula, you need to understand that a full-time equivalent student is an FTE. SSA and DCPP are the same thing. It's the district cost per pupil. There's a weighting factor that goes into this. It's 0.7 for a CTE course and a 0.5 for an arts and sciences course. And business classes are 0.5. Nobody really understands why. Most of the classes that we offer are the 0.5. Instructional minutes refer to a document that the Department of Ed puts out every December, which is a great time to put it out for that school year, because we're definitely not halfway through it at that point. And that does minutes for courses taught on college campuses. And then we're going to look at total instructional minutes, which are minutes per period times periods per day times days per year. This can be different from school to school, but we're going to be using the 1,080 hours number because that's what we go for. We generate supplemental weighting by taking the section FTE, or how many minutes they are in that class, divided by the total number of minutes, times the number of students enrolled, times the course weight, times the SSA, and that gets you the weighting that we get back from the state. So just keep $2,800 in mind. If we use 2,400 minutes, which is the reported number of minutes for financial accounting, we're just gonna use financial accounting for all of this. So this is how that is generated. So taking that formula, we're now gonna talk about some changes to the MOA and why they're significant. This paragraph is incredibly important. This change allows us to report the maximum number of minutes, no more than 1.5 times the reported number of minutes from EICC, which is allowable in senior year plus. So we were reporting 2,400 minutes, and that got us about $2,700. But this change allows us to report 3,600 minutes, which changes us from 2,800 to 4,200 revenue generated from the state, just by changing that number. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you just clarify for me? You mentioned the bill we get.
Uh-huh.
Is that reimbursed by the state?
No.
Okay, so, but we're talking about state reimbursement now, but we're still paying $500,000.
This is not a reimbursement. So we report to the state, this many students took this many classes, and they just give us a certain amount of money. It doesn't matter how much we spend. This is the amount of money that they'll give us.
But that's a completely different thing than the fall and spring that you shared with us at the very beginning of the presentation.
This is the money that we should be using to pay those fall and spring bills. And I'm going to go through why we're not quite making it to those numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, I told you. I'm talking fast. I'm sorry. This change allows us to establish our own rules for student eligibility and concurrent courses, not just using the ISAP's proficiency as default. We will be updating those with the course guide in October. That's what it was for a long time, and so students had to be proficient in all measures of their most recent ISASP assessment, and now we are able to establish our own measures of eligibility. This allows us, when an EICC instructor comes onto our campuses, we pay that portion of their salary. There's a significant difference between having a full-time instructor on our campus and an adjunct. This statement makes the process more collaborative on who comes to our campuses. Before, EICC just made that decision and placed somebody there. Now we get a little bit of input on what that means. This section just establishes a district-wide orientation for our teachers that teach concurrent courses that we will have to pay an hourly rate for. However, what had been happening is that EICC was going around doing those one-on-one, and with 161 concurrent instructors in their whole district that are high school teachers, that was just an unmanageable amount of people to do that with. So this will happen in the fall. So this is the important part. So the percentage that we pay for courses did not go up from this last year to next year, but the base charge per credit hour did go up. Now, it only went up $7 per credit hour, but that's just something to keep in mind. They'll say it stayed consistent. That's not entirely true. It is still 32.5%, but it did change from 32.5% of $195 to 32.5% of $202. So, like I said, so it costs, so tuition costs us 32.5% of that amount of money. So if we looking at that same accounting course, right? For example, we generated $4,275.60 of generated funds from the state. This course is 3 course credits. We had 20 students enrolled, and we're in charge 32.5% of $202 per credit hour. So the cost for this course to run is $39.39, which leaves $336 on the table from this course. If we taught it on our campus, We follow the same textbook renewal cycle, and the teacher cost would be the same as if they were teaching like a high school course during that time anyway. So we kind of keep that in mind, or we keep that out. So as you hold this in mind, that's $16.83 of generated funds per student in a 3-credit non-CTE course, which is a majority of our courses. So we've been looking exclusively at concurrent enrollment courses, so those ones that happen on our campuses with our teachers. But when you flip over to individual enrollment, we are being charged 60% of online tuition, which is set to be $223 for the next school year. And we must provide a textbook for that student. And we have to use the minutes from EICC to calculate how much funds we generate. So, looking at the same exact course, if the student takes this online instead of in our room, we now have to use we're back to using the 2,400 minutes. It's one student. So we'll generate $141.39. And it'll cost us $401.40 before the purchase of the textbook, which EICC's estimated cost is $21 per credit hour. So this course will cost the district $260.01 per student. So if we generated some extra funds over here, and we use that extra funds to help offset the extra amount that it costs to pay the individual enrollment, so the $16.83 per student extra generated from our on-campus courses, we need 15.44 students in on-campus courses to cover one CCIR student, or one individual enrollment student. Taking into account the purchase of access to a textbook, that's another 3.74 students needed to cover this cost. So we basically need one full class of students to cover one individual student if we want to break even. So what happens next? Next steps and going forward. You may have noticed that we have stepped back from some concurrent course offerings over the next school year, including several courses that did not immediately benefit from the inclusion of college credit. Specifically, the welding, automotive, and culinary courses, because they have industry-recognized credentials embedded in those classes, which EICC recognizes as college credits if you go to EICC. So those students would already be getting those college credits anyway. There's been a commitment to communication embedded throughout the MOA. EICC has embedded lots of places where they outline that they must be in contact with district and school administration throughout the school year. They've hosted superintendent breakfasts, the negotiation team, and have faculty and dean presence at the CTE teacher professional developments that happen throughout the year. They've also created a concurrent enrollment office that has a dean and 2 associate deans to help provide that communication. Some future negotiation priorities are, of course, freezing or lowering tuition costs to us, especially for courses taught on our campus with our teachers. If it's taught on our campus with our teachers, we're being charged 32.5% of what is essentially an administrative fee, which we feel is a lot. We'd also like to negotiate the inclusion of our Project Lead the Way courses from the engineering, computer science, and biomedical pathways as is aligned in Senior Year Plus. We used to do that. EICC took that away. The state would like us to put it back in, and so we'd like to focus on that. And then focus on textbook and course material costs per student. We also have several places that we can continue to advocate with our legislature, which includes, of course, state supplemental aid, as well as the calculation formula. The university formula uses credit hours instead of minutes, which makes way more sense for everybody involved. All right, questions?
Director Beck.
A friend of mine is actually the Iowa Department of Ed person in charge of Senior Year Plus stuff. She brought it to my attention that we have been using dual enrollment when we should be using concurrent enrollment. And I noticed you've been using concurrent enrollment, but it's my understanding that dual enrollment applies to people enrolled in like a homeschool, but they also want to play extracurriculars or whatever. So I don't know if we can call the North academy a dual enrollment academy. I think we're supposed to call it a concurrent enrollment academy.
Yes.
Just,
I think all of the marketing has it that way.
yeah.
It has been updated for that, but we'll check to make
She
sure.
brought it to my, she
Mhm.
was like, I saw this on Facebook. You guys need to fix that. I was like, okay, I'll bring it to somebody's attention. But my other question was, I guess, like, what benefit really are our students getting, you know, from what's really, there shouldn't be a difference between the information and material, activities, assignments, whatever, that students are doing if they're being taught by our teachers on our campus than if they went to EICC classrooms,
Mhm.
right? But we also know that the amount of contact time that students have in our school year, for example, is a little bit more
Mhm.
than what they would be getting in an EICC on campus. So I'm trying to figure out sort of what is the benefit to us and to our students for being able to take these college courses on our campus with our teachers. I mean, I can kind of see the direct benefit to our students, but I'm trying to figure out the direct benefit to us, if there is one.
Okay, so we do push our students to take on courses on our campuses more often than not because honestly, transportation is a big deal for a lot of our kids. So it's really an equity thing. We can't bus an entire section of students to EICC's campus, and they have stated that it is not their priority to reserve a section for our students, even if we could fill a section.
Okay.
It would be open to the general
Yeah.
population. There's also a subsection of students who are prepared for the rigor of a college course, but maybe need extra scaffolds that are not provided on campus. And from what I understand, the original conception of the North program was to create something for students who would not ordinarily attend those schools or attend college, to create a pathway for them to be able to go forward.
Okay.
And so in our own buildings, we're able to provide a lot more structure, support. We have the whole MTSS system that we can wrap around them that allows students who maybe wouldn't be able to access college courses to access them.
Okay. So basically, I'm thinking of in Illinois, the rules are a little bit different. But, you know, students who would in the past have had to take a developmental course in reading, say, to be able to take the first level of college course in any topic would have to be reading at a certain level before they could take that class, right? Because you need them to be able to have certain basic skills to be able to pass the class. So by having this in our schools, we can sort of build in some of that developmental part of it because we have that extra time and we have that extra support so that they're more likely to be successful in that first college course.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have about 200 extra minutes built into each course on our campus versus an EICC campus
Okay.
that allows us to provide some pre-teaching if we need it or some fun project at the end if they don't.
Okay.
Director Klein-Jerome.
Okay, so if I'm a student at West or Central and I want to take a class, my only options are I drive myself to the campus or I do it online.
No, West and Central both have offerings of concurrent enrollment. The most common classes that they take are Comp 1, Comp 2, Public Speaking. We have 15 sections of public speaking next year running across the district, so it's quite a lot. And then we also have Intro to Psychology at every school. And then there's also then we also have request based from there, but those are the 4 that run consistently at every school.
Okay, so it's just a class here or a class there rather than the whole 4 years of.
Correct.
Okay, and then my next question is by the numbers at North. 84 freshmen, 80 sophomores, 68 juniors, 47 seniors. Is that typical? I mean, did they start off as 84 along the way and then kids drop out, so you're almost at 50%? I mean, is that typical?
Junior year is what I've been told. Junior year is very hard. They have it very packed, so they do find that they have a lot of students who, I don't want to say don't make it through, but do not choose to not continue.
In their junior, they do it the junior year and then say senior year I'm done, or they stop before the junior year?
It depends on the student.
Okay. So it's typically that we lose them along the way. Okay, thank you.
Director Barnes. I'm still really trying to wrap my mind around EICC's revenue from this program that is related to Davenport Community School enrollment. Because this certainly seems to me to be a leverage opportunity. I mean, it seems like we're contributing either through state reimbursement or through our own funds an awful lot of what is running EICC. And if we look beyond Davenport Community Schools and we look at other communities that are also participating in concurrent enrollment and individual enrollment, it would seem to me that we got a lot of leverage, that their revenue is coming from these programs rather than students who are enrolled in community college.
An interesting statistic that happened this year was that concurrent enrollment now officially makes up 51% of EICC's enrollment.
Director Beck.
To piggyback on that, we clearly have some negotiating power here, and not that I want to discount the amount of money that the college deserves for this whole partnership. If we are delivering the content with our faculty, yes, they have to have the same qualifications as anyone who would be teaching at their institution. They should be evaluated by the EICC departments, all the same things. But we should be able to have a little bit more leverage, I guess is the right word, in the amount that goes there. And I realize some of it is the state legislature, but yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Director Cloninger.
Okay, so I'm a teacher at North and I'm teaching a class. Is my paycheck coming from Davenport Schools or EICC?
Depends.
That's clear. Okay.
So specifically, the Concurrent Academy at North is it is 10 of our teachers and 11 of EICC teachers every year at North teaching those classes. So 10 of them, their paycheck is coming from us, and 11 of them, their paycheck is coming from EICC. However, we then have to pay EICC for those teachers for the part of time that they are there.
But the Davenport teachers aren't getting EICC money, but yet we're paying them like they are getting. But that doesn't, I don't get it.
Can I just clarify? The 11 teachers that are from EICC, are they full-time in the Davenport schools, or is this just one of the courses in their course load? Like, for example, I have a lot of colleagues who teach, they might go to the high school to teach one class per semester or something like that. And then the rest of the classes they're teaching are on our community college campus.
As is common for my answer, it depends.
Okay.
Some of those teachers are teaching full-time on our campuses. For example, the public speaking teacher we have exclusively, they hired specifically to teach at Davenport high schools by Davenport's calendars. Just because we have so many sections, it filled their load. However, some of them are adjuncts that are just teaching one class and they're just teaching it for us. And some of them are full-time instructors that are coming over from EICC for a section or two. It depends. It's a big spreadsheet that I get to keep track of.
So I'm a Davenport, I gotta go back to my question. Yep. I'm a Davenport teacher paid by Davenport schools, and yet we are paying EICC as if we aren't paying them. I mean, there's no cost to them if we're paying them.
So there are some costs. I mean, there's administrative costs to them. So in order to have one of our teachers teach a concurrent course, they do have to be overseen by a department head from EICC, and that department head is overseen by a dean. We do have academic advisors from EICC on all of our campuses. So that way those students can get registered if they need any tech help or any of the orientations. Those academic advisors are in place in order for that to happen. They also, I mean, just like us, they have to have somebody who runs the transcripts and the credits and all of the other administrative stuff that goes along with college credit.
So do we get a discount if there are teachers versus if we're just paying straight for the EICC teachers?
The only discount we would get in the same situation is not having to pay the salary of the EICC instructor.
Okay.
Director Poston.
So how many total students did we have enrolled at?
2,571 students across the district took a concurrent course this last year.
2,571.
Now that's not unique students, so some students took like more than one concurrent course over the last year, but that was butts and seats. Mm-hmm.
Director Potts, did you have anything?
Yeah. What we know, we got those figures on what the net cost was for each semester, but how much is our cost out of the general fund?
I can't really give you a solid number right now because it varies from semester to semester and the timing of when we get the funding. You'd almost have to take the one sheet and subtract one from the other. It's kind of like driver's ed. It's a loss to us. It's not a break even. It will never be a break even. We're all going.
What's ballpark?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, is it $100,000? $50,000?
We can gather that information and put it in the Friday report, Bruce.
I think it would be an important figure to know. Not that it would be a make or break figure. When you consider if it's, let's say it's $100,000. We're spending $100,000 out of the general fund on students that are taking college classes. That pales by comparison to the amount of money out of the general fund we spend on kids who have a hard time learning, reading, writing, behaving, and the rest of it.
Director
I'm
Potts.
glad I made you all speechless.
Well, we didn't know if you had another. Do you have any more questions?
No, I think my question is what is our out of pocket? I mean, we cannot discourage or limit the kids that are deciding to take it online. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's the high expense ones, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. No, I just like to know because regardless of that figure is what impacts us. I mean, if the EICC is making money because the state's running money through us to pay them, okay, that's no skin off our nose.
So you would like that information before the next regular board meeting when we take action on this? Duly noted, sir. Do you have anything else, Director Potts?
Nope.
Director Poston.
So you probably don't have this figure, but for the spring 2024 bill, how many total credit hours would have that been?
I can get that information for you, but I don't have it immediately.
Any other questions? My question, who's on the negotiating team? I know you said superintendents, but like who's on there from Davenport? Like that's it?
From Davenport? Yeah. So they were only so there's a superintendent from the north, the metro, and the south.
Okay.
So the superintendent representative from the metro is Brian Struess from PV. And then I'm on the team, and Shane Kanoki from North Scott to kind of represent the numbers crunchers.
Okay. I will say these numbers are a lot better than the former chancellor was trying to push through. Thank God she's gone. Yeah, I'm still trying to spin on all these numbers. It's crazy. Director Beck.
Sorry, one other clarifying question. You said 51% of EICC's enrollment is concurrent enrollment.
Yes.
Do you know what percentage of that is Davenport students versus PV or something else?
I have a spreadsheet with the breakdown, but I don't have it immediately.
But are we the most?
Oh yeah.
Oh, by a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because they would all be doing mostly individual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. A lot of the other school districts are very much so heavier in the individual enrollment as opposed to full sections.
Okay. Thank you.
The other question I have, why the $7 increase?
That's what their board approved.
Oh, the EICC board?
Mhm.
Okay. I was just curious on that, being they're already making a ton off of us. $7 more adds up real quick.
It does when you're talking about 2,571 students.
Any other questions? Any other information board members would need to vote on this at the next regular meeting? All right. Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to subject 10.03, long-range facilities planning, North High School. I'm going to turn it over to Josh Hermansky because that's what he's going to do. For real? I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, President Goza. So while Carrie is navigating the plug-in on the floor, yes, it is. Tonight with us, John Mann is not available, and so he sent Carrie Uhlenkamp with us today. She's a representative from Bray to kind of go through the presentation for today. In the cadence of our presentations, we are following right along with the Phase 1 implementation. Sudlow is down the path we had discussed that soon to follow would be the discussions about SMART. We're now entering that phase where what does the North renovation look like? And so today we're going to be talking about that. The team has been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that Phase 1 stays on track. So Carrie, thank you so much for joining us today and sticking around. We've had quite a packed meeting, and we really appreciate your patience. So Josh, myself, Carrie, we're just kind of take this presentation together. Does that sound good? So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, so as you guys know, we've started with a master plan throughout the district, and through that master plan, these were the projects that were identified. We've worked through most of those. Either they're currently in construction, currently in design, and now we're really at the North High School addition and renovation. So at the beginning when the master planning started, these goals were developed, and it was to develop new science classrooms, improve and enhance the facade, the entry, how people are coming into the building, and make that all cohesive. A new media center to replace the existing building library, reconfigure classrooms and the library space into new classrooms, collaborative spaces, and just give those classrooms a different size that's appropriate to today's standard. These classrooms were developed as a middle school and now are used as a high school. We also wanted to focus on the CTE classrooms. They were reduced and compressed at one point, and so we would like to expand and improve those again. And then there's some specialty programs, dance, swim, et cetera, that really just don't have their own space, and we want to make sure that they get that space. And overall, in any building project like this, it's the time to start making sure that you're improving the right things, you're reorganizing and kind of giving it a cohesive future. So this is the site for North High School. It shares the existing YMCA. A lot of confusion happens of just when people are approaching the building. The stoplight brings people in close to the YMCA. They like to go into that entrance. They miss the main entrance. And so the site in general is kind of a factor when you're looking at it with where the parking lots are and where the entrance is. So the first scheme that we looked at started with an addition in red. That is a 2-story addition that includes science classrooms, and then on the second floor it has regular classrooms. You want to start with the addition, so then you open up space to renovate. And so the blue areas would be those areas that you're taking out of the building to put into the addition, and then you're renovating them into the new office and media center, which is on the left-hand side of the screen there. One of the benefits of bringing the media center out to the perimeter is that then you're not bringing people into the middle of the building to have meetings, have those collaborative things in the afternoon or evening, which kind of poses a security issue. There's also some renovated classrooms then in the middle of the building. And so this was one scheme. Another scheme would take it from a 2-story addition down to a 1-story addition. So you have a lot of the same amenities, but this one also changes a little bit of where the entrance is. It brings it over to that parking lot on the east. It still has a science wing over there, and also the media center starts to gravitate over to that side. So you have a little bit more cohesion on that parking lot, especially with that main entry that people do come in on. Again, in the blue is the renovated classroom spaces. So when we're doing those renovations, we're always making sure that those classrooms are the right size and they have some collaboration space too. And so going back to the original program goals, these 2 schemes meet about half of those, as you can see. Those are the highlighted ones. We're really focusing on the science classrooms. We're focusing on the main entry, that whole sequencing and the facade of that. And then the new media center is the main focus of what you're getting out of those 2 schemes.
So this next slide is incredibly important for us. So as we're beginning to plan what is the direction we'd like to go for Davenport North, in March of this year, our initial 25 lease is ending with the YMCA. The way the contract is written is that the Y has the option to continue that lease. They have to alert us by March. They let us know that they're interested in taking back, they want to continue that partnership. What we let them know is that we're going to investigate all the options for that space. And so that's where we sit today. Now, as we began that conversation, we knew that we had to have a discussion with Bray. We knew we had to have a discussion with our internal team. And so we had a discussion with our internal team and our internal board team, which consists of Kent, Dan, and Bruce. And in that moment, that's when we realized that this is probably going to become public, and we needed to bring that to the school board for discussion, for talking about right now. And so as we move forward, Carrie's going to present some options of what does it look like for Davenport schools if that is the option that we choose. And so really the pros and the pros of what that looks like for us are the next steps, and kind of seeking some guidance from our school board in which way to go. This is very similar to the Sudlow project, where we realized it could be beneficial to build a brand new building, and so we brought that to the school board. This is very similar in that aspect. So Carrie.
And so this really brings forward a great consideration for the future again, right? So when we looked back at that goals, we were meeting about half of those goals. And so when we started to look at what can we do with a combination of the North High School and the YMCA, it starts to look a lot different because you can start to really bridge that gap between the buildings. You can start to have a centerpiece that has the media center, the cafeteria, the entry becomes a little bit more dominant on that corner, and the science wing just becomes a part of it, right? So you have a large addition through that middle piece that bridges between the two buildings. And then again, you do have all those renovation pieces throughout the building that are supplementing the goals. And because you need a large consideration of space to accommodate all of those goals, the YMCA space provides you a lot of space to really get to those goals. And so in this current scheme, there's 2 phases. Phase 1 would be the addition of the entry and the science wing. So you're still staying with those original goals of how do we do this first? And then phase 2 would be the addition of that centerpiece of the cafeteria, the media center, as kind of that bridging part. The renovations on the interior are all supplement to the different phases based upon what you're taking out and what opens up, that, just with how renovation works that way. But this process and taking over this space starts to get you that whole list of goals, because we're building new science classrooms. We're building a new addition that improves that facade, the entry, the media center and the cafeteria become a centerpiece on that campus also. And then you're reconfiguring a lot of classrooms into the interior so that you're making them the right size, you're giving them some collaboration spaces, and by getting that extra space, it just amplifies everything else that you can do through this process. The CTE classrooms are a natural fit. I'm going to try to go backwards, and of course I'm going to mess this up. There we go. Because the CTE spaces were originally in this area, this is a very easy renovation portion, because the fitness can vacate out of that space that we gave them and move over. So again, you're really reorganizing the building in this scenario to put things that are meant to be together and then reorganize so that you're getting things back like the CTE areas that you're wanting. Yes.
Well, just to the drawing, thank you. The other component of this is that in the long-range facility master planning work sessions, the feedback, the surveys, it was crystal clear that this district wanted to be continue to be a 3 high school district. This is our concurrent enrollment building, dual enrollment building. And so the notion that we could utilize some of this space also to enhance that program inside of our district, along with our CTE. And the onset of this building was built as a middle school, and there's walls that you can talk through inside of the building. Now is the time to commit to transitioning this to a true 4A high school. Now's the time. And so all of those things become possible with these multiple phases inside this building.
And so when we looked at all of these options, the phase 1, this is really how it comes out in numbers of what we were hoping to accomplish. And then originally the budget was, I believe, 20 to 22 million, and this would put it in the 19 to 22 million. And that's for phase 1. So the question comes up, what if we don't take over the YMCA portion of it and we continue that lease? there's always some implications either way, right? And so if you continue with one of the options where the phase one is getting you the science classrooms, the addition with the entry and some renovation portions, this gives you some values of how you would be able to, the space that you would need to add to get those other amenities and a rough cost to supplement them. So the facility, the size and features of the YMCA is 25 to 30 million. A standalone CTE facility is 9 to 10 million, and a standalone new fitness room is 3.75 to 4.25 million. And so by having this space and just needing to renovate, supplement, versus build brand new, that is a large factor. Another factor is the pending deferment maintenance on the YMCA. That should be factored into this.
Like I said before, the initial term is up. The YMCA has let us know they want to continue. We've let them know our intentions are to investigate what does this look like for us. We have been consulting Lane & Waterman about this contract, and there, as we're going to state below, there are ways for us to move forward. Just some other key components. With the Y rents the facility for $1 annually. The YMCA receives priority on the scheduling of its events and no membership benefits to our students. Then on the next slide, our responsibilities is we're responsible for all major capital improvements, including roof, HVAC controls, plumbing, and sewer. The capital expenditures since 2011 have been over $3 million, and there's 75 parking spaces at the YMCA. The YMCA's responsibilities, they're responsible for general maintenance and custodial expenses, and they're responsible for utility expenses and responsible to the staff operating those expenses. So the next, on the next component, here are the two contract portions of it right now. The initial term, like I said, is 25 years. The YMCA has an option to extend, which they have said they wanted to. The notice of renewal to be given at least 18 months prior to the end of the term. If the terms for renewal are not mutually agreed upon, the agreement shall terminate. That's the first way for us to move forward. The second one is the agreement may be terminated by either party prior to the expiration of the term. Provide 18 months notice to the other party by January 1. Any notice given prior to January 1 this year would terminate the agreement by June 2026. So this is where we are. You can see the options that we have. Obviously, we're looking at very high level drawings. We're looking at very high level decisions, but we know we're at a crossroads. So we need a decision from the school board, direction on how to proceed. And we're going to continue on with that phasing mapping that we show there below. Right now, I turn it over to you, President Gozer, for questioning for our staff.
Do board members have questions
or discussion? Thank you.
Mr. President?
Director Potts.
Yeah, I gone over this proposal prior to this. We've looked at it. We've had some conversations in the workshop that we had last Thursday, and I believe it is in the best interest of the district and certainly to enhance the opportunities for our students at North High School that we, as a board, exercise option 2 and terminate our association with the YMCA at the facility at North High School.
Thank you, Director Potts. What are some other board members' thoughts? So we can kind of, Director Postian.
I would agree 100% with Director Potts. When you just look at the dollars, you're looking at, if you're trying to create the CTE space and everything else by itself, you're looking at $38 to $44 million. Where taking over the Y, we're looking at $22 million. So I feel it makes sense for our students and it makes sense for our taxpayers.
Thank you, Director Poston. Director Barnes. Brief. I just want to mention, I think that the third option that Bray has come up with is very imaginative. It advances excellence in our school district, which is what we're supposed to be about. And if that includes a different relationship with what is now the Davenport Y, I think we need to entertain that possibility very seriously. We're supposed to be about advancing excellence, and as Director Poston has said, being very good stewards of the school district's resources, and that's an imaginative plan to advance excellence in our school district. So I really like what I saw tonight. Thank you, Director Hayes.
I like drawing number 2, and in light of the students with the Y having preference over the scheduling, that's kind of difficult for our students and having to go to other facilities to practice with no benefits to them, and we're paying the upkeep of the building. I feel it's important that we make a decision to terminate the agreement.
Thank you, Director Klandrum.
Yes, I do agree. Also, option 2, to get $25 over the last 25 years, and we put over $3 million into the building. We're not being financially responsible in that situation. When it was originally built, the whole big deal was, oh, now our students will have a pool. That was a big deal. Well, they don't get a pool because the scheduling doesn't allow them to have the whole pool all the time. So it needs to financially and go back to, this is a student issue. We need to provide them a good facility and good opportunities.
Thank you. Director Beck.
Yeah, looking at the cost and the ability to expand, for example, the science classrooms and the CTE spaces. I've seen those spaces, and they are definitely not appropriate for delivering a high-quality education right now for our students. And so the ability to be able to make those changes relatively quickly, move that fitness center to another area, and allow our North students to have the same access to a pool that, say, Central does. I think it's really a creative way of thinking about how to maximize the space that we have for our students. So yeah.
Being a parent of a North grad and a junior at North, or no, senior now, I did not realize till our son went to high school that they got absolutely no perks from the YMCA or the Y, whatever it's called now. Couldn't utilize any of the facilities or anything like that, so then you got to pay for it. For me, I think it's a no-brainer, especially if we can utilize money from moving some things over there that are going to be real easy to do and be able to utilize that space at less of a cost, and then to be able to reinvest it in some of the other things to move some of the other phases up possibly. One thing I would like is how much did it cost us to build the Y originally, and I'm sure the Y put in, we'll say $500,000. And clearly, so they've paid us $500,025 over the course of this 25 years. So I'm sure we have a way bigger investment on things. And I think that's a common misconception for the community. They probably think our students get to utilize this stuff. And especially not being able to utilize the pools and things. I mean, we see it all the time in here. We have a lot of awesome student athletes, our CTE programs, and if we're able to expand on that, like has been said, that's growing excellence. That's what we're trying to do. And if we can invest dollars, as we've always said, to directly impact the students in the classroom, these are big things that we can do and very attainable things to do. So I would be in favor of that. That's the only information I would like. I don't know if anyone else would need any. Director Poston?
For Bray Architects, which scenario would be the best as far as the timing that the Y vacates the property?
I think either scenario works. We are ready to design it now and ready to move forward. So it's really kind of at the district's discretion of how quick they want to move.
So what does the rest of the board think as far as would be looking at vacating fall of 2025?
Kevin, help me with the calendar here. The fall of 2025, because it's 18 months after October.
If you look on here, I don't know what page this is.
So I think these
Page 19.
allotments are from either option 1 to option 2 is how it was described to me. So for example, when it vacates, it would either be fall of 2025 or spring of 2026.
That's correct, because it was the September 15th is when the original 25 years was in. So it would be September of 2025 or the June of 26.
Director Beck?
So, I don't, is that something that we need to provide feedback on right now as well, as whether, it seems like most of us are in favor of, do you guys want to know our thoughts on the sort of now versus 18 months, or is that something we can discuss next week? Or next meeting when we vote on sort of where we're going?
I would assume, and this is just me, that once this is presented, we vote on it, it's gonna be up to, is the Y gonna wanna leave earlier? Or are they gonna make this thing drag out just to put us behind on things? I think that's gonna play a factor into it as well. But if you wanna elaborate on that.
That's what I was thinking as well. I think if we needed to know the general direction, and I think that we've gotten that. Now it's the internal team of what is the best strategy. Because if it's too soon, I think Director Potts, the option B gives a runway for the other organization as well. And so I think with the direction that we have, we can make a recommendation that I think would work best for our timeline, our own runway. I think that we would be able to do that. Carrie, is that accurate, you think?
Yes, that sounds accurate.
Director Kleindrum.
So regardless of which option, though, you could go ahead with building the office in the science space and then renovating the science space, no matter when that Y is vacated, correct? I mean, we could still move forward.
So let me go back to that drawing. Because we've got this in phases, yes, we could start on phase 1 right away. We could start those drawings, and then phase 2 does supplement after the fact. So again, it is how quickly do you want to move, and how quickly do you want to start construction on something, and then when does that domino through for the rest of it?
But no matter what happens with the Y, phase 1 could happen.
Yes.
And even that interior phase 2 could happen with the library and the office space.
Correct.
And that. Okay.
So it really stops at,
the fitness,
the CTE,
part.
the fitness, and then we would have to work through that connection that you see against the YMCA, because that's a different scenario than we were proposing before, and so that would probably have to be worked out and probably more talked about of if they're still there, do we bring that back a little bit so that it's not touching that building and that true connection? I would say that needs to be worked through.
But that's part of phase 2, so even if it was delayed. Okay, thank you.
Still a very high level drawings and thoughts going into this, so reading into the deep details is pretty hard to do at this point, but we'll have to tweak some things as we go.
Josh, real quick on while this is up here, there are certain things that your folks can do, right? If it's like move, that would be, it wouldn't cost us a lot.
Yeah, we're looking at some of these things where we can do smaller projects internally as much as possible, and maybe hiring a contractor to do small portions of it, working with people we work with all the time.
Okay. Do you know, you might have mentioned this in there somewhere, how much this would not necessarily save us, but how much money with taking back over the Y and doing that stuff would it put back into the other phases of the project?
I would have to look that up. I don't know that. John would know that better, or maybe TJ does.
One of the figures that John utilizes to build a standalone weight room facility, you're looking at anywhere from $2 to $3 million at a minimum. So that number right there, the standalone fitness, in order for us to get our CTE rooms back, that at a minimum is the cost that it would be to build a brand new weight room facility. So by taking the action that by absorbing that white space, the weight room moves over right away, and then freeing up other spaces inside the building. I think another key component of this is that the size of the classrooms at Davenport North need to be expanded, and we're going to eat up other classrooms in order to do that.
You're probably looking at between 10 and $15 million of savings by utilizing space that's already there.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured somewhere's in there, but I just wanted you on the record saying it. Is there any other discussion on this or any other information board members would need before this comes to us at the next regular board meeting? What are the next steps after this? The board takes the vote. I'm assuming the Y folks are probably watching this meeting, so they know the conversation and that. So, and then it's pretty much we take it back to them, and then their board does anything, or whatever we do is
contractually when this board votes.
Okay.
It's effective.
Okay. Thank you.
Per the contract.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on this? Director Potts, you got anything else?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Other than I would say this to the YMCA, you know, the old expression, all good things come to an end.
Duly noted, sir. Duly noted. All right. Thank you very much. Carrie, John, you did an awesome job. Knocked it out of the park. You could bring her from now on, Josh. She gets it done. Thank you so much. We will move on to subject 10.04, policies for board review. I'll turn it over to Director Klein-Jerome.
This policy deals with board meeting agenda, and as I read it over the weekend, there is one thing I would change, add. In the second paragraph, it talks about requests from the public may be added to the tentative agenda at the discretion of the superintendent after consultation with the board president, and I would like to insert there and vice president, because the board president and vice president developed the agenda. So I think the vice president, whoever it is at the time, should also be consulted. Other than that, anybody questions about any of this?
Are we, oh, sorry, forgot to raise my hand. Where it says the tentative agenda and supporting documents will be sent to board members 3 days prior to the scheduled board meeting. Do we need to, is that too strict? Do we need to, it says tentative, so I know that means things can change, but you know, sometimes something might happen where we need to get them a little bit later or something like that. Is this going to hamstring us to a specific 3-day window, or is, as long as it's mostly, you know, because it says tentative, then 3 days is fine there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is,
it's got some wiggle room.
It's got some wiggle room in it. And if there's a request, it says received after the deadline may only be added to the agenda for good cause. So there is a way to change things
Okay,
based on good cause.
okay.
Mr. President?
He said, Mr. President, I'm not Mr. President. Director Potts.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The 3-day restriction, the 3-day prior is a very important deal because if you don't have that, people that want things on the agenda wait to the last minute. That was my experience before. They wait to the last minute to get stuff in, and then it's, oh, it's this and oh, it's that. You gotta hold feet to the fire to people that are making presentations in front of the board to get their stuff together and in on time.
And I do have to say, Brenda does hold their feet to the fire, and she's very good about
Yes.
having it
Yes.
in her hands before that. And I agree with you, it needs to be there. Any other comments, questions? Okay, it will come back later. Thank you.
Administration.
Not this time.
Giving you 5.
Are there any board requests? All right, seeing none. Board reflections. Director Potts, we'll start with you.
Okay, a couple of things. One, I apologize for being late to the meeting, but when I logged in, I had to do a download to update my Zoom, and it took freaking forever. Second, we had a lot of stuff on the agenda today. The special ed, that's a nice bureaucratic form. The policy with the EICC is important because that's giving us the opportunity to provide tremendous opportunities for kids that are college bound. And that's part of, I think, what our mission needs to be. But probably the most consequential thing we did tonight, and the one that will have the most impact on our community at large, is the direction we're going in with terminating our the lease of the YMCA at North. I think it's important that we do it. I think we need to do it for the benefit of our students at North High School. But I think we need to understand that we have to make sure that we do and explain our reasons very clearly to the community. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Director Potts. Director Barnes.
Two quick things. Love the Champs presentation tonight, and we really want to compliment Madison Elementary for the work that they're doing. I think that's headed in the right direction, so appreciate that very much. And I think that the Bray's imagination that they're showing in regard to the Davenport North plan is really, really, I think it advances excellence for our school district. Like what I see there, and I don't know that if they weren't pushing us and challenging us to think about big things for Davenport North, that we'd be having the conversation we're having right now. So I think that they really deserve some credit for pushing us.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Director Klein-Jerome.
There is a lot of time put into that special ed delivery plan. I thank you for all your time and commitment to it. I don't know that honestly, and as a board, I've seen a plan like that, and I know it took a lot of time, and I thank you for that. Also, the whole funding and the concurrent enrollment was very interesting. I'm not so sure I agree with the way it's all being funded, but that also was a good explanation of what's happening there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director Klein-Jerome. Director Beck.
Yeah, I appreciated the deep dive into our district developed special education service plan. I remember doing it 5 years ago, and I don't think it went as smoothly. I think the information just wasn't there. It was kind of just given to us, and I really appreciate the way that you guys presented it. I also really appreciated everything, but the CHAMPS presentation, you know, when we voted on it, we said we wanted to see some information about it after a year. And so we're seeing that follow through. And I think that's really important because that's something that has significantly changed in this district over the last few years. Having the data come back after a year so we can make an educated decision and then follow up again. So I look forward to that in a year. Everything else, yeah, pretty cool too.
Thank you, Director Beck. Director Poston.
Yeah, our discussion on the North High project, I mean, this is a really big deal. This is a big deal for our district. It's a big deal for the city of Davenport, and it's a big deal, you know, for our students. You know, and we think back when we were looking at this Smart and Sudlow project, and you know, we made changes there along the way. So I'm glad we've taken the time and invested in the time, and with the help of Bray Architects, really looked at this and under a microscope. And I think the outcome is going to be fantastic.
Thank you, Director Poston. Director Hayes.
I think over this last year, we have really had to make some tough decisions in the interest of our students. With the decision for tonight, or the discussion of tonight, I feel that the students at North will advance with that. And again, I do appreciate Bray for giving us options on what we could and could not do. And although it is the community loss, the savings I think that we can look forward to would be most helpful for everyone.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Superintendent Schnecklock.
I would concur. I think there was a lot of information tonight, but necessary information for this time of year. We're renewing, we're moving forward, and I'm just really proud of all of the effort and work that goes into the presentations, the work that's behind it. I sat here and watched our wonderfully talented people present because it's the work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis for our staff and students. So incredibly proud.
First, I just want to acknowledge the incredibly awesome superintendent and administrative reports tonight. Just really knocked them out of the park. I think this was a great meeting, very informational. I still don't know about the EICC stuff, but that's another discussion. And congratulations to North High School, and I'll end with it's a great day to be a Wildcat. Director Potts, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.